Wendy Kloppers was shot dead in her vehicle at a City of Cape Town construction site in Delft last Thursday. Kloppers, a City of Cape Town official, was on duty when she was shot dead in what is believed to be the latest in a series of attacks by vicious construction mafia. A 100,000 rand reward has been offered for information that will lead to the arrest of the suspects. For more on this, we are joined now by Webster Mfebe, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the South African Forum of Civil Engineers Contractors. We'll be joined a bit later on by Roy Mnisi as well, the Executive Director of Masters Builders South Africa. But Mr. Mfebe, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. Let's begin with you here with us in the studio. So if we listened very carefully to the budget speech yesterday by the Minister of Finance, as he was announcing the 900 billion rands or so that is going to be pumped into in infrastructure and the billions that are going into building some bridges in rural communities. He said the following words: "We need to crack down on criminality in the construction sector. The extortion and intimidation of lawfully appointed contractors and workers they employ cannot be tolerated." That is what he said yesterday. In September, we had the Minister of Human Settlements saying that law enforcement authorities are working on a program to target and address criminality within the construction sector. How have we responded to this? Have we normalized the question of extortion practices within the construction sector because of the weak response that we have given to it?
Well, we are not yet there. There are still pockets of these incidents mushrooming in other areas where you go to one area and engage with communities and community-based organizations. It dies down and it erupts somewhere else. But the commitment that was made by the President in the SONA that there will be task teams that will deal with this matter, and task teams that deal with infrastructure, not only construction, have been set up. And in fact, very senior officials have been allocated to that. And even coming here, I had the opportunity of talking to the head of organized crime, General Sibia. And indeed, he reported in one interview that over 700 people have been arrested by the police in this regard. But this is a societal problem. It is not a police problem. Yeah. It is misdiagnosed, and as I always say, solutions to problems are like keys in the lock. Yeah. They don't work if they don't fit. Yeah. This is about access to social justice, which should be understood by all. If we do not contextualize this properly, we will offer solutions, bring the army, bring the police. It will never stop. Access to social justice, which is a view by the United Nations that everyone deserves equal economic, political, social rights, and also opportunities. It is, in my view, predicated on three cardinal pillars of equal rights, equal opportunity, and equal treatment. If people on the ground, the majority of people, do not have a lived experience of these rights to social justice, then it's a breeding ground for criminality. So to throw the police to the problem instead of resolving problems that start on basic provision of services at municipal level, for an example. And then the only time people get attention is when they resort to violence. Only then violence becomes the voice of the voiceless. And then the proliferation of the multiplicity of guns in communities, which gives them power to access. And the reason why the police will not crack it is because some communities, when I interview them, they actually clap hands for these people. They are heroes.
I exactly wanted to talk to that question a little bit later on. Why are we failing to get this united front, or at least build a citizenship that is opposed to the extortion culture that's
unless you address what I talked about, we are the world's most unequal society. You know the saying that says, the old adage, a hungry stomach knows no laws. Okay? people resort to, you can talk about rules and all that if people are hungry. If we can do simple things like end what I call absentee leadership. Yeah. We have layers of leadership, spheres of leadership at local government levels where they are nowhere to be found, only during election time.
All right.
Need that to happen.
Let's unpack that a little bit more in just a moment. But let's bring in Roy Mnisi, Executive Director of Master Builders South Africa. Roy, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time tonight on In Focus. We need to crack down on this particular question. How have we fared in terms of what we've been trying to put in place in our fight against extortion groups? For example, if we look at our policing response, Mr. Mfebe, believing that there is, even at the highest level, some kind of intelligence-led strategy. Has it been effective?
Good evening, Thabo, and your viewers at home, and good evening to my colleague, Mr. Webster Mfebe. Thabo, this is a very, 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 very complex problem that we are dealing with here. We have been talking about this for years now. I started, taking debates and conversation about it as early as 2015. Thabo, I think there are no arguments around issues of economic exclusion, and I don't think there's an issue with people that are fighting against economic exclusion. That is to be understood. What seems to be a problem, Thabo, for us is that there are some people that are using economic exclusion for their own narrow end. If, for example, you have got a situation where people have got to lose their lives precisely because you feel that you are excluded, you feel that you are not part of the mainstream economy, you feel that you should be getting some opportunities somewhere there, you feel that you are mistreated, I do not think that is fair to do. I do not think that is the way to go. So I think what is the problem here is a situation where we appreciate that we do have challenges, we do have problems, but we resort to violence to deal with those problems that we have.
Back with you live tonight, here in Focus, and thanks for staying on the conversation tonight. Sparked by the comments by the Finance Minister, but also it has been an ongoing conversation with close to 900 billion rands that will be spent on infrastructure. The Finance Minister has raised concern about the ability to crack down on criminality in the construction sector, saying the extortion and intimidation of lawfully appointed construction companies and workers that they employ cannot be tolerated. So what needs to be done to build a community that safeguards construction sites? Webster Mfebe, Chief Executive of the South African Forum for Civil Engineers and Contractors, as well as Roy Mnisi, Executive Director of Master Builders South Africa, are still my guests tonight. So Mfebe, let's come back to that. So you're right that policing is one aspect, right? So you can have the intelligence-led strategy. You can have laws. I mean, I believe there are some laws that have been put in place, critical laws, which have not yet been passed. For example, the Critical Infrastructure Protection Act, which is meant to protect the national key points, the National Infrastructure Plan. There's also the Critical Infrastructure Program. All these things are in place. However, they will not work, for example, if you do not have early warning systems. So early warning systems means you need a community that will be able to raise the alarm and whistle blow. For example, now, if we were to talk about that, is there even an interest in society, in communities, to blow the whistle? Do they have channels? Do they have a hotline that they can phone if they want to do so?
Well, first, let me take the opportunity to relay our sincerest condolences to the family of Wendy Kloppers on behalf of our President, Ms. Marina Dumagude, and SAFSEC as an industry body. Quite true, no effective policing can take place without the cooperation of communities, because it is the communities that harbor criminals. Criminals are our sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, and we can, in fact, point them and weed them out. But that does not happen. In fact, I was surprised in my research, not desktop research, talking to communities as to why they do not point out these people and say, we are all hungry. If they are so brave and we are not brave, if we were brave enough, we would also take up arms and fight for our rights. So, which is why we clap hands for them. If they succeed, because we are neglected, our rights, the promise of the dawn of democracy in 1994 has not been a lived experience for some communities. But that is not a justification for committing crime. We condemn in the strongest possible terms any use of violence against any citizen of this country, which is why we have succeeded actually in engaging. In KZN, we brought down these incidents to a lower level. They're still taking place. You either have to engage. You cannot have a cessation of hostilities without engaging. So among other tools that have not been effectively utilized by government is this district development model, where government must not work in silos, must work together. For example, if a building has to take place, it is the city that knows, that approves those things. They must call the police. Everyone must be aligned and be aware of what could possibly happen. So they can set early warning signs and say, a construction of so many houses here is going to take place. What is likely to happen is this. And then you put people on the radio, you engage with communities. But hungry communities, I am telling you, we shall talk about this from 2015 until 2035. For as long as we do not deal with the causative factors, which is what I call access to social justice, visibility of leaders who can deal with problems of the people. You cannot expect police to be politicians and to be social workers. Police react to a situation. Of course, preventative policing can be effective if communities are engaged, they feel that they are cared for, that when they talk to those hotlines that you referred to, that there is an effective response to their problem. Their only response that they get is, unfortunately, through a culture, inculcated culture of violence. Banning a library, a school, you get attention. We need to reverse that mentality, but it starts with the failure of governance and leadership. We need to fix governance. A government that is responsive, a government that cares, a government that is available at all given times, especially at local government level.
Local government would be very critical. Mr. Mnisi, welcome back. I think we've got you back there on the line now. You're saying you've tried the engagement with the police. Mr. Mfebe here saying, for example, in KwaZulu-Natal, they've even gone to the extent of engaging with the forums, the business forums at the local level, and to an extent, that negotiation has managed to yield some positivity in certain aspects. As contractors, are you willing to do that, to go to that level of negotiation, or is that viewed as complicity?
Thanks very much once again, Thabo, for bringing me in. Like I indicated earlier before I got cut off, the problem is complex, and we will not have one way of resolving the problem. But it's important to make certain acknowledgements so that we acknowledge where the problems are, so that we create the chance of solving those problems. What I was saying earlier on is, in as much as we appreciate and acknowledge that there are socio-economic challenges that we are facing as a country, there are certain things that you do not expect to see happening in a developed country or in a country that is developing. Be it, the issue of unemployment, people being hungry, people being frustrated by lack of opportunity. So what we are saying is there is a problem of lawlessness in this country. And as a result, we're finding ourselves in a very, very difficult situation to deal with the problem. You have a situation where people have to lose their lives precisely because
People are saying, we want opportunity. We want to be involved in this project. We want to participate in one way or the other. You cannot have that. There shouldn't be any reason whatsoever that leads to somebody losing his or her life as a result of socio-economic challenge. Now, the issue around, the police, I think we should appreciate and acknowledge the fact that in as much as there are attempts in certain areas to deal with the problem, I am aware of certain instances where police were able to rise to the occasion and assist. But equally, we are aware of many instances where we have picked up some shortcomings and challenges and gaps in a manner and way in which the law enforcement agencies are dealing with the matter, for example.
So what shortcomings are you talking about? Because the police say, well, we have intelligence-led strategies, but what is failing to happen is that we are failing to have a united front whereby we have buy-in from communities, from citizens, broad buy-in where they are exposed to this extortion culture. So instead of the strategies being successful, is that the people, the communities themselves will stand in the way on those of those cases being properly investigated.
Yes, Tabo. A case in point, I remember one of the situation where one of our contractor members informed us somewhere in Limpopo that they are being attacked by people coming to claim for 30% payment of the total project. And in that instance, what we advised them to approach their local police, because that was a contractor from Gauteng, for example. It was a contractor from Gauteng, if I remember very well. And they go to the police station and inform the police station that we're seeing this thing growing. We're seeing this thing is going to happen. These people are doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we want you to help us. And instead of, helping the people, they were told that, that's a contractual matter. Go and see how you can go about dealing with it. A matter where somebody is intimidated, where somebody is told that if you don't give me certain amount of money, I will shoot you, cannot be a contractual matter in any way whatsoever. So those are the areas that we are saying. In some instances, there are shortcomings. There are instances where contractors went to police station to report a particular case, and police will come and assist the situation. And the issue of discussing the matter, I think it has assisted. In some instances, it didn't help. I've had experience of meeting with some of the people, some of the grouping. You talk to them, they will understand. And I must indicate as well, we must look at both sides, of the coin. There are contractors, there are construction companies that are not complying with the transformation laws of the country. For example, your BBBE Act, your construction sector charter, and other pieces of legislation that are aimed at redressing the imbalances of the past. And we are saying, for those people that are doing that, for those people that are making themselves guilty of non-compliance with the transformation laws and transformation agenda of the country, they must be taken to task as well. Yes. So it's not only the communities or local business forums that are to be taken to task. Even the construction companies themselves that are not complying with the law are supposed to be taken to task. Yeah. But when you have got a situation where law is not, fully operational, then we have got a problem of people doing as they please, and then lawlessness will trump in that situation.
So, Mr. Mnisi, you're saying there is legal support on both ends. There's, in terms of legislation, there's legal support that says construction companies need to adhere to the transformation imperatives and the equity imperatives that need to operate in that particular space. Are you saying those are enough as far as the support that needs to be given to those communities that need to benefit? Or is there more that needs to be done there? Or is it just a matter of enforcing those laws and policies that are in place?
We believe they are more than enough. It's a matter of enforcing. We need to have capacity to enforce the law from both sides. It shouldn't matter whether you are from business, you are from a community, or wherever you're coming from. There must be full application of the law. That's how it should go.
Well,
yes, you can jump in.
Well, I would like to drop a bombshell and leave it there. for another day for a discussion. I have been writing, and I'm going to expose what I call the construction border bond, which is a cartel, influential cartel that resists anything transformational, that targets anybody who stands in their way, which is linked to what Mnisi has said, but he's not describing it as a construction border bond. But I will expand, not for this day. But the hope that I have is that these people will be nabbed. The police are doing the work. It's only that maybe they're not communicating enough to release the statistics. Even those police that are complicit in other areas would get reports that police go, the people get caught interdicts. Instead of acting on those, they go inside, they shake hands with these people and leave. They will be nabbed. The police arrest some of their own. We have proof of 2 national police commissioners who have been nabbed and charged by their own. Many generals. All these police that are involved in these things will be nabbed in the fullness of time.
Without getting too much into it, because you're saying you are going to write about it, but we know how the construction mafia is operating.
That's another type of mafia, the construction border bond.
Yeah. Talk to me about the construction border bond. How does it work?
I'm not going to talk to it now. It's a topic on its own. Let us be focused on this topic that we are addressing now.
I'm just
are we doing
that
enough?
Would that not be the thing that then continues to be the stumbling block towards gaining access to some kind of resolution to the extortion economy?
Of course it is. Of course it is. For an example, I've written, I can give you articles where I interview people who say, we are not mafias. We are just ordinary people who want to be involved in the mafias are those who collude, who sit and allocate market to themselves, working with some of those in power to allocate tenders to certain people to the exclusion of ordinary struggling South Africans, which is why we are saying we are not mafias, we're fighting for our right. The actual mafias have not yet been identified. So in South Africa, when you talk about a mafia, a disruption on site is a misdiagnosis of what is happening. And then you have a talk about a mafia state, and people don't have a conception of what a mafia state is, which is in fact, if you allow me, because I think we need to...
It sounds to me that it has some kind of ideological, political connotation to it. That's why sometimes they would say the construction mafia is linked to, for example, politicians who are aligned to a particular ideology of radical economic transformation, so to speak.
Well, again, I mean, gang syndicates, criminal syndicates and mafia. Mafia is a very serious concept which is involved in drug trafficking, in extortion. It has a structure. It has a godfather, a guy who is not doing the bidding. Somebody sitting there maybe eating sushi in Sentin, and the guys who get arrested are the small fish, and they are there, and it is linked to a certain people in government which become a criminal enterprise in which government, the private sector, and those players are involved. I think in dealing with that issue, I have confidence. In talking to the police, I go to the national police. I've spoken to the national police strategy.
Yeah.
In the fullness of time,
they will be caught.
They will be caught. If they can catch their own national police commissioner and senior general, they will be caught. But I think we are misunderstanding the whole concept of small syndicates involved in petty crime and say it's a mafia. A mafia is like the one that was arrested here in Princeton as an Israeli mafia that was arrested here.
I'm going to bring you back to talk to us about the construction
border bond. Yes.
But let's leave it there for tonight. That is Webster Mfebe, the Chief Executive Officer of the South African Forum of Civil Engineering Contractors, as well as Roy Mnisi, the Executive Director of the Masters Builders South Africa. It's still a conversation that needs to be unpacked and delved into a little bit more.